I want to thank you for visiting the board website and looking at this PowerPoint that we've developed to explain the differences in some of our decisions at the board related to certified nursing assistants, or CNAs, and our new category of nursing assistant, licensed nursing assistant, or LNAs. This is a new regulatory framework that the Arizona Board of Nursing will be initiating in July 1st of 2016. My name is Pamela Randolph, and I'm the Associate Director of Education and Evidence-Based Regulation at the Board of Nursing. After listening to this presentation today, we are hoping you will be able to discuss the rationale for the two levels of nursing assistant and list the similarities between CNA and LNA requirements. Then we would like you to be able to explain the additional requirements for LNA for initial licensure and for renewal, and to differentiate between the Board of Nursing criminal background checks and the fingerprint clearance card. As you walk away from this presentation and talk to your CNAs in your facilities or CNAs in the public or your patients and residents, we hope you'll be able to discuss, debate, and explain these issues that are related to CNA LNA. So first, we're going to start with a little bit of history of regulation of nursing assistants at the Board of Nursing, and this is between 1991 and 2015. In 1987, federal laws called OBRA 87 require that each state establish and maintain a nurse aid registry. That same federal law prohibits and still prohibits charging the CNA a fee for initial placement on the registry because federal and state grants are provided to the states in approximately the amount of $422,000 per year. However, in the past 10 years, the cost of regulating CNAs has more and more been sustained by RN LPN licensure fees because the CNAs, according to OBRA 87, are not to be charged. To further complicate matters, in 1999, state law changed and they required a state and federal fingerprint background check, or CBC, for all CNAs. And again, no fee could be charged, even though this was an additional requirement above and beyond the federal requirements for being on the registry. That brought the cost of certifying and regulating approximately 28,000 CNAs to over $1 million. Between 2010 and 2015, the subsidization for this program was approximately $500,000. There were state general funds appropriated for the criminal background checks, but those were deleted during the Great Recession about 5 years ago. Now, the board is able to charge and does charge an endorsement fee to CNAs who come from another state, but we're still not allowed to charge for any of the charges and any of the expenses of the program directly to the CNA. Therefore, it became increasingly apparent to us that increased funding for the CNA from RNs and LPN licensing fees and special appropriations from state funds to support criminal background checks was no longer tenable and was not a good practice to use our licensing fees from our RNs and LPNs to sustain the CNAs. When we met with the legislature, the state also decided they will no longer fund the criminal background checks for CNAs, and they did require the board to propose a solution. What the legislature charged the Board of Nursing with was implementing a self-sustaining model that protects the public for nursing assistants. Therefore, in 2015, we introduced legislation called House Bill 2196. House Bill 2196 created two levels of nursing assistant. Due to federal laws, we still had to have a registry of certified nursing assistants, and we could not charge for placement on the registry. We also believe at the board that we had a higher level of scrutiny of our certified nursing assistants in the past with our criminal background checks and our full jurisdiction over their certificate. So we propose that this level of nursing assistant be moved up to the licensed nursing assistant, or LNA. Both the certified and the licensed nursing assistant would be on the established registry of nursing assistants. We introduced statutory definitions of certified nursing assistant and licensed nursing assistant. As you can see, when we compare these two definitions, the definitions are very similar except for the level of licensure or certification. So the definition of the certified nursing assistant is a person registered on the registry of nursing assistants to provide or assist in the delivery of nursing-related services under the supervision and direction of a licensed nurse. The definition of licensed nursing assistant is very similar. It is a person who is licensed to provide or assist in the delivery of nursing or nursing-related services under the supervision of the licensed nurse. So you can readily see there is no difference in scope of practice between these two levels. So we're going to talk a little bit more about what is the difference and what are the similarities. Let's start with the education. Both the certified nursing assistant and the licensed nursing assistant must complete the same approved nursing assistant course. There will not be different courses for the two different levels. Additionally, both levels must pass the same written and manual skills examinations. And as we stated before, both levels will be registered on the registry. For the CNA, the other information that will appear on the registry is substantiated complaints in very narrow categories, which I will go over a little bit later on the next slide. And we'll talk a little bit about what kinds of information will be on the LNA registry. The LNA, however, will be paying for the initial application, which is $50, and each renewal, which is $50. Both the CNA and LNA will renew every 2 years in their birth month. However, the practice requirement for the CNA will be 8 hours of practice in the past 24 months. The practice requirement for the LNA will be 160 hours of practice in the past 24 months. In statute, it is very clear when you look at the definitions of CNA and LNA, CNA says is not an LNA, and the definition of LNA says is not a CNA. So one cannot use both titles simultaneously. Here's where the differences really start, however. The CNA does not submit fingerprints for the criminal background check. The LNA does submit fingerprints to the board for the criminal background check. The CNA pays no fees. Grants pay for the registry. The LNA, as we've said before, does pay fees and also pays a $50 one-time fingerprint fee. The CNA, the board has very limited jurisdiction. The CNA is investigated by the board for complaints of resident abuse or neglect or misappropriation of a resident's property. On the LNA, the board has full jurisdiction for unprofessional conduct, such as impairments, substance use or substance abuse, boundary issues, exploitation, poor practice, practice breakdown, a variety of issues that the board can investigate and can let the public know that this LNA may not be competent or has action on their license. To enact the CNA LNA regulation and bill that passed, we needed to make some policy decisions. All CNAs certified before July 1st, 2016 will retain their current CNA status and will need to declare on their renewal whether they select to be an LNA or a CNA. When they select to be a CNA on renewal, they will go to a different status of nursing assistant registry only. For endorsement applicants can apply for the CNA registry status, and that is a $50 fee as is currently in place, or they can apply for an LNA license and pay total fees of $100, which includes the licensing fee of $50 and the fingerprint fee of $50. For initial certification or licensure, new applicants, and those are those applicants who apply after July 1st of 2016, will automatically or with registration on the board website be on the registry after passing the written and manual skills exam, and they will be able to use the CNA title. They may choose to pay fees and submit fingerprints for a criminal background check for an LNA. New applicants and initial certificants can apply for the LNA at any time after passing the CNA course. This is how the CNA LNA exam initial application process is going to look. Both CNA and LNA complete the same program, pass the same tests, and renew every 2 years. The program will collect proof of citizen documents or proof of legal residence documents and submit them to our test vendor. For CNA, the application for testing to our test vendor, DNS Diversified Technologies, and we may also require a registration with the board at a later date, will suffice as the application for CNA. Once the applicant passes both the written and manual skill test, they are eligible to be listed on the registry. There will be no fingerprints to the Board of Nursing, and there is limited Board of Nursing jurisdiction, and there are no fees. On the registry, the listing will show any substantiated complaints of resident abuse, neglect, or misappropriation of property, which is also theft. There is no license for the CNA. For an LNA license, fingerprints need to go to the board and be reviewed by the board. The fees are the initial $50 for the license, the fingerprint fee of $50. After 2 years, the renewal fee will be $50. There is no additional fingerprint fee. There is full board jurisdiction. The LNA holds a license and is responsible for maintaining that license and for adhering to all the unprofessional and professional conduct standards of the board. For CNA LNA endorsements, the general requirements to endorse into Arizona from another state is to be listed on the registry in another state with no substantiated complaints, to have worked in the past 24 months as a CNA, and to have completed an equivalent of a 120-hour program and passed a certifying exam in another state. There is also currently a $50 fee, and that will remain for the CNA. A couple of differences in requirements is that to come into the state as an endorsement CNA applicant, you have to have practiced for 8 hours. To come into the state as an endorsement candidate for LNA, you have to have practiced 150 hours. You also have to pay for the LNA an additional $50 for the fingerprint fee. So the total fees for LNA would be $100 for endorsement candidates. The total fees for CNA would be $50 for endorsement candidates. This is a diagram of how this process will work for endorsement candidates. At the top of this diagram, we've listed the qualifications that I went over in the last slide. Then the nursing assistant applicant should review the materials on the board's website and select a CNA option or an LNA option and determine if they meet the minimum qualifications for each option. For the CNA option, it is a registry-only listing. Again, there is no criminal background check, and there is a $50 fee. There is no renewal fee and limited Board of Nursing jurisdiction. The work requirement is less. It is 8 hours of work in the past 24 months. Any substantiated complaints of abuse, neglect, or misappropriation of property will be listed on the registry and reported to the Office of Inspector General. To be an LNA, there is a fingerprint background result that comes to the Board of Nursing, and that is a fee of $50, the initial fee of $50, and then to renew the LNA, there is a $50 fee. There is full board jurisdiction. And the renewal requires additional work hours, 160 hours of work in the past 24 months. They will be listed on the registry as an LNA. The same substantiated complaints would also be reported to the Office of Inspector General, but they would have full board jurisdiction for all unprofessional conduct, and that information is available to the public. So this slide reviews the renewal requirements. For LNA to renew, you must have 160 hours of practice plus the application fee of $50. To renew CNA registry status, it is 8 hours of practice. Now, what would happen if a current CNA only renews as a CNA registry and then later wants the LNA? They must submit an LNA renewal application, plus fingerprints may be needed if the fingerprints at the board are over 2 years old. So the total fee may be $100. So again, our current CNAs do have LNA status in everything except the fees. So if they renew as a CNA only, they are going to a different status. They will not pay renewal fees, but if they want to go back and have the LNA status, they may have to start the process over again with the fingerprint background check. And then this slide goes over the renewal process, and it looks very similar to the endorsement process. The nursing assistant renewal applicant should again review materials on the website and select which option they would like, CNA registry or LNA. They need to determine if they meet the minimum qualifications. For CNA registry, again, no fee and limited board jurisdiction. For LNA, it's a fee of $50 for the 2-year renewal, full board jurisdiction, and requires 160 hours of work in the past 24 months. The listing on the registries and the listings available to the public are the same as we went through on the other slides. Theft, abuse, misappropriation of property, and neglect are noted on both CNA registry and LNA. They are reported to the Office of the Inspector General, but the LNA license may have additional information because of the full level of board jurisdiction. Now we're going to discuss a little bit about the criminal background process. As most of you know, in the past, the board has done criminal background checks on CNAs. In the future, those electing for the CNA registry status will not have a criminal background check by the board. However, many facilities, including all long-term care facilities, will require a fingerprint clearance card. The fingerprint clearance cards are obtained by submitting fingerprints to the Department of Public Safety. The results of the state and federal information are sent to the Criminal Fingerprint Clearance Board. There are certain criteria for not issuing a clearance card. These criteria can be found on the website that is on your screen for the Fingerprint Clearance Board. Also, the Arizona Board of Fingerprinting can grant a good cause exception and central registry exception to anyone who is denied a clearance card if they show good cause. So we had to ask ourselves, is the board fingerprinting the same as a fingerprint clearance card? First of all, you need to know that the board does not issue a card. The board takes action on conduct reported in the background check. The current felony bar will change from 5 years to 3 years in August of 2016. And that would mean that 3 years from the date of absolute discharge, we could not license a nursing assistant as an LNA if they had a felony on their record. Fingerprint cards are sometimes issued to persons, though, who would not be licensed by the board due to criminal background. And occasionally we found that a license is granted to a person who would not qualify for a fingerprint clearance card due to the fact that the board takes all applicants on a case-by-case basis unless they meet the felony bar. Then it's an absolute bar to licensure. We wanted to get a little more data of just how prevalent this was. So what we did is we reviewed 84 nursing assistant applicants who were denied certification due to the criminal report. And this is really important to know because it was the criminal background report that led the board to believe that these nurses were so unsafe we could not license or certify them under any condition, that these nursing assistant applicants, rather, were so unsafe. We did find that 40 of those 84 applied for a fingerprint clearance card, and we wanted to know what happened. Were they issued a card? Well, approximately a quarter of them, or 11 persons, were issued a level 1 clearance card with absolutely no restrictions. Another 35% held a card with driving restrictions only, meaning that they could do anything in a facility with a resident, except drive the resident home or transport the resident in a car. This is not usually in the normal course of duties of a nursing assistant, so basically they didn't have any meaningful restrictions on resident contact or patient contact. One of these people did have a card suspended, and 6 people received a card based on an appeal to the fingerprint clearance board. So they were initially denied the card, and then they appealed and received the card. So the bottom line is, of the 40 persons who applied for the card, 32 of them, or 78%, received a fingerprint clearance card. We reviewed all these files, and this is just a sampling of the files that we reviewed. These initials are not the actual initials of the people, so their identities are protected. But here are some examples of applicants that we denied a license to or a certificate to who did have a level 1 unrestricted fingerprint clearance card. LX was convicted of retail theft, admitted lying to the board investigator, admitted to mental health issues but could not afford an evaluation. RS was charged with sexual intercourse with a minor. The evaluation revealed a risk of substance abuse and psychological issues. UC had charges of disorderly conduct and assault. WW had 2 counts of forgery and cashing stolen checks. BA had a DUI, criminal speeding, and admitted to the daily use of marijuana, cocaine, and alcohol. And notice this does not even have a driving restriction on it. EF had shoplifting, drug possession, disorderly conduct, and domestic violence. When we looked at these cases, the fingerprint clearance card did not give us the assurance we felt we needed to assure the public that somebody that we licensed or we certified was safe. So then we had to ask ourselves, which level? Why would someone want to pay fees and be under the board jurisdiction when you can just be on the registry for free? Well, all who pass the DNS exam will be automatically on the registry. Employers may require the LNA for work in a particular institution because of the higher level of scrutiny that the board has over these persons. Also, hiring an LNA, you know you have their full history with the board. The LNA, we feel, offers additional public protection and a higher level of scrutiny. We have projected revenues to result in the reduction or elimination of subsidized regulation by RN and LPN fees. And again, to reiterate, the fees are $50 licensing fee plus fingerprint fee of $50 for initial license as an LNA and $50 for renewal every 2 years. For any questions, please visit our website at azbn.gov. There will be a whole page dedicated to licensed nursing assistant. You may also contact me, Pamela Randolph, until September 2nd of 2016, Judy Bontrager or Rhonda Doolin by email at the Arizona State Board of Nursing. Thank you very much for listening to this presentation. We hope you are better able to understand and explain the differences between CNA and LNA.